You're listening to the Jam Price Show, all about movies. And today, my guest is director Adam Salky, and we're talking about his brand new film entitled Intrusion, which will be debuting on Netflix. Very exciting,
Isn't
Adam.
that exciting? My God,
Yes, incredibly
a
exciting.
year in the making, a lot longer for the writer and the producers.
How did you? First of all, I loved this movie.
Thank
It
you.
was a heart pounding, edge of your seat, psychological thriller, almost to the bitter end.
We're going to quote you
And
on that.
okay, you can. Definitely, I'll be happy to do that quote for you. It is it's an exciting film, and there's much to talk about in this movie. But first, I want to know how were you attracted to this film? How did this all come about for you?
There's so many things that attracted me to it. The movie is, like you said, it's just a really gripping suspense film, and I love those movies. I grew up on those movies,
Mm.
but I actually was attracted to the film for personal reasons. The movie is about the protagonist, Mira Parsons, who, when we meet, we learn that she's a breast cancer survivor. And at the same age as the character in the film, my best friend went through that journey. And when I was reading the script, I just thought it was such a really incredible way of showing someone going from sort of traumatized victim to empowered survivor, but in the course of a thriller, which I thought was really interesting. So that's what initially drew me to it.
And that is interesting. I mean, that plot line is very interesting for this character. Oh, and Freida Pinto. Ah, gosh, she is just so stunning. And she and her co-star Logan Marshall Green both are excellent in this film. They
Great.
both are, and they their chemistry together is fascinating to watch, and how their relationship evolves over a period of time. How did you cast this?
Of course. Well, if I always, to me, Frida Pinto was a breakout performance in Slumdog Millionaire, which of course is a breakout film. Dev Patel, also of course, breakout
Right.
performance. It just was so memorable.
Mhm.
She always stuck in my mind. And every time I would see her in the work she did, I would just think, my God, she's so warm. She's so approachable. And the Mira character is a therapist. So she kind of really had to have that quality. But I'm also very interested in casting in surprises. So, a film that I made, I Smile Back, has Sarah Silverman in her first dramatic starring role. And that was obviously a big surprise. But Frida had never done a film like this. She had never done a thriller that has action elements. I actually don't think that an Indian actress has done an American film like this before. It's a real first. So to me, that was
Yeah,
exciting. I just thought Frida's amazing, and we have to get her, and thankfully she loved it.
I, I
Um,
I agree
Go
with
ahead.
you, and also that she carries this film. I mean, I don't think she's ever carried a film by herself. I mean,
Mm.
Logan's there too to play off of, but basically, it's her movie, I believe.
Yeah. She's the protagonist, and Logan to me is a chameleon. He's that
Hmm.
kind of actor he looks different. He's always completely different in everything he's done. He really stood out to me in the film Devil in 2010. I saw that, and it's just really contained kind of genre thriller, and I just thought he was incredible. And then I saw him in The Invitation, and I'm just, my God, he's just completely different in everything that he does. That actually is really great for this movie, because the Henry character is someone that we're trying to, get a read on throughout the movie.
And he is a chameleon in this one too, for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
One of the little touches, and I don't know if it's something that Logan came up with or you did as the director or the costumer, somebody. The fact that his shirts were always buttoned up to his throat,
Hmm.
and that and obviously he's very, I'll use the word anal retentive in this film too. Everything has to be exact and in its order and all of that. Was that something that was in the script or something that he developed with you? How did that come about?
That was a detail that we came up with together. It might have been something that Logan pitched. Actually, this when I read the script, there were just so many things about it that I loved. One of the one of the things was that Logan's character is an architect, and I actually know a lot of architects. One of my best friends from growing up is an architect, and I don't know if you've met many architects in your travels, but they tend to be very curated, very specific. And even if they might have a rumpled shirt on and it untucked and ripped pants, they'll have really unique frames, you know? And so that was something that we wanted to lean into. The house in the film is a house that this character has built for them as a couple to grow old in together after she's gone into remission. So it really is, we meet them in this place of hope. And so, yeah, all of those details about, you know, him being a little buttoned up and things having to be exactly how they are, to me, felt truthful to the architects I know in life.
Okay. Well,
how are the architects I know in life going to feel after they see this movie without giving too much away? You tell me.
I don't know.
Don't take it personally, architect friends.
Really? I hope they don't take it personally at all. You brought up the house. Okay, so the house is a whole character too in this film. It's totally 100% another character in this movie. So did you find this house, or did you actually build this house for this movie? Because it's meticulous too, and its lines. And where did you film it? Let's talk about all of that.
We found the house in Albuquerque, New Mexico. It was a complete needle in a haystack. I wanted the house to be, I knew that the house had to be really unique, architectural. I wanted it to be modern. And as it turns out, in Albuquerque, I probably should have known this, the predominant style is something called Pueblo Revival, which is not what this house is. So we were scouring the area and coming up a little bit empty. One day, our cinematographer, Eric Lynn, goes to the Grip rental house. And he was just saying, hey, do you know any modern houses? And the owner of the Grip rental house said, oh, my good friend lives in this house. 2 hours later, we were in the scout van going to go check out this house. We walk in there and the house is spectacular. It's very unique. It is modern. And it had these strange details. It had hallways that went nowhere. It had closets that you would open and there would be nothing but a flat space in there. And part of this may have been because they were still working on it.
Oh, okay.
You know, but I mean, it was done, but they had plans. So perhaps those things were a part of the owner's plans for the house, but there was a suspense to the house. It's a 10,000 square foot house. So our production designer, Brandon Tanner Connolly, did an incredible job changing it into something that would be for these characters and for the story. But the bones were, as they say in real estate, it had good bones.
It had good bones for the filming of this, for sure. So was the film entirely shot inside of this home, or did you also have to build a set? And I don't want to give anything away. So yeah, I think you know what I might be alluding to. The home has a very
special feature.
Okay.
I'm just kidding. We shot probably 2/3 of the movie in this house, which was pretty suspenseful in and of itself, because this was a film that was made during the fall of 2020 in the middle of the pandemic. One of the, I believe, approximately dozen films that were made during that time, because obviously production shut down. And we did have some positive tests while we were filming. Thankfully, no one got seriously sick, but we did have shutdowns. And so the poor owners rented us this house, but the date that we were needing to get out kept getting longer and longer as the production got delayed. I'm just saying, if the owners are listening to this, I feel for you. We tried our best, but most of the filming was in the house. There was a little bit of something we built on a stage, something very special, a surprise for the audience, because this film does go to a very surprising place.
Yes, it does.
And we also filmed 5 days on location throughout Albuquerque and a town just north of it where this film actually takes place called Corrales.
So were you always planning on filming it in New Mexico? Was that always the idea, or was it just that this is where you found the house and decided to film there?
It's a great question. The answer is no. So as I mentioned, we shot during the peak of the pandemic, and the script originally was a house in the woods. And it was originally supposed to take place in Maine. and it was not feasible from a production standpoint and from a safety standpoint to get a crew during the pandemic to Maine. So ultimately it was decided, and I should say in general, a lot of the decisions were driven by safety. Everyone was passionate about making this film and everyone was passionate about going back to work, of course, but we needed to make sure it was done safely. And Netflix has stages and an infrastructure in Albuquerque in New Mexico. So we decided to go there. That's why I wasn't, normally I meticulously plan everything. So I would have known, okay, we can find the house we need there, but I didn't know. We went to the place we knew we would have the best chance for the whole crew and their families to be safe. And of course got there and realized we couldn't find the house until we found the one house. But yeah.
It's pretty amazing that you found, and because the house, as I said, it is its own character, and that you found this particular house basically in the middle of nowhere, isn't it? It just, or it looks that way. It's in the middle of nowhere, or is that just the way you made it feel?
Are you reading my face? There's some movie
Yes.
magic in there.
Okay.
It actually was in a suburban neighborhood in Albuquerque.
Oh,
And we use the magic of post-production to remove a handful of things that I didn't want you to see, to create the isolation that is in the film. And another thing about the location, which actually is one, in filmmaking, they talk a lot about happy accidents, things that just happen that you didn't necessarily plan for. To me, shooting in New Mexico was one of those, because how many thrillers, how many movies have you seen where it's like a house in the woods and something goes awry? I mean, so many. But how many have you seen where there's a house in the desert? It's just a different vibe. And to me, that was really special. So the moment New Mexico was floated as something that would be a good option for us, I was all in, not knowing what we were going to go through to find what we needed, but we ultimately did. But that desert locale, those feelings of isolation, feelings of being trapped, that's what everyone was feeling in the world, and still is, and in a lot of places as the pandemic goes on. But those feelings of being trapped, I would say, if you think that you felt trapped during the pandemic, just wait till you see this movie.
I think this works much better than if you had gone to the woods, exactly for the reasons that you just stated. We've seen so many movies where, the house is in the woods, and there, lots of them. I mean, we can go through, I'm sure if we had to find a curator to find that out, there would be millions of them. And so this works much better. It worked for me as a viewer. It worked much better.
This is a peek behind the curtain for some people, but I'm so sorry. Go ahead.
No. I think it just worked better. Go ahead.
Oh, great. Peek behind the curtain in making movies for some people, but it will happen that a state, name XYZ state, will all of a sudden say we have a tax credit, and then production will hundreds of films will be shot there, and then you won't even you might subtly notice it, but then for years, a lot of the films you see are shot in similar locations, and they all kind of look the same.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And so this was an opportunity to go against that trend.
And it works. It works really well. Yeah, it really works well. Yeah, you're welcome. That's great. You're welcome. How did Netflix was Netflix involved from the very beginning? And because you said they have studios in New Mexico. Mm-hmm. So they were involved from the beginning, or was this a film that you did and then Netflix purchased it afterwards? So how did that all work? Great question.
It's a Netflix original. But it was something that was developed outside of Netflix, and that Netflix essentially purchased before I even knew it existed. So the writer, Chris Sparling, and producers, Josh Weinstock and Russ Hollander, Alexander Milshin, and Kyle Ben developed the script and showed it to Netflix, and Netflix said, yes, we will make this. And then one of the things they were missing was a director. And then it turned out that Josh, one of the producers, I had met almost 12 years ago when I first moved to LA. And we had a great conversation back then, but there wasn't necessarily any business to be done. And so when the script became available for someone to direct, my agent, Harley Copen and ICM, had a conversation with him, and he remembered me. And that's how I read the script for the first time. And then it really was on me to come to them and express to them my take on the movie, what kind of film I would ultimately make. And thankfully I was able to do that.
I mean, you've done a fabulous job doing it. That's an interesting story. I mean, I love it when serendipity, right? You met
Yeah.
him 12 years ago. That's a long time. And
Yeah,
that,
it really is a you never know kind of thing.
yeah, especially in
You meet all
Hollywood.
kinds of
Go
people.
ahead.
Yeah, you meet all kinds of people. You don't, a lot of, you never know what's going to come out of those interactions. And this was one that actually led to this project coming together. And that was just really special.
Yeah, it is. See, what else have you done? What other films have you done that we've seen? Or is this your
Oh,
first
sure.
feature length?
No, actually, it's my fourth feature film.
Or-
My first one is sort of indie feature that sort of Sundance indie that came out in 2009 called Dare, starring Emmy Rossum and Zach Gilford, Alan Cumming.
Okay.
And my second film is I Smile Back, which came out in 2015, which stars Sarah Silverman. And I also made a movie for television called The College Admission Scandal, about the college admission
Really?
scandal. That's my big joke, which is really just very fun portrayal of something that is really sad, ultimately.
And so do you have another project you're working on now, or are you just at this point
So
getting this one
many.
out there? So many.
Well, I'm focused on this one, but I
Yeah.
actually I'm planning on directing another thriller next. I can't say too much about it, but it is in some ways the mirror image. In some way, it's in some ways the mirror image of this movie, and really also incredibly suspenseful with a big twist at the end. So hopefully we'll be hearing more about that one soon. But right now, I'm really excited about Intrusion coming out. I just feel like this film, I think, speaks to some of the anxieties of the moment, and really, to me, communicates this thing that I found very interesting thematically, which is the terrifying unknowability of people, and how that blind spot with the people you're closest to can be even scarier than cancer.
Interesting. Yeah, very interesting analogy there.
It's a tough movie to talk about because there's so much we can't talk about.
I know.
How do we do that? We have to talk around
It.
all of the surprises in this
Yeah.
film, and it's the kind of thing you have to see. There's a moment
Yeah.
towards the end of the film where things shift, and I do believe it's something that audiences are really just going to be completely surprised by.
They are. I mean, I agree with you. I mean, as I said, this was, edge of the seat kind of movie, when you're kind of gripping, watching it.
Yeah,
going,
you are describing my pitch to Netflix as to why I should direct a movie. So if it worked, then they make good decisions over there at that company.
Well, show this interview to Netflix and you can tell them that I'm your audience.
Look, in the end, they chose. It was them. Yes. Hopefully it was a good choice.
It was an excellent choice, Adam. As I said, this is a fun movie. It's exciting. Movies have to, like everybody, right? Especially in today's world, there's so much content out there. Believe it or not, there's tons and tons to choose from. And so I'll start watching something, and if it doesn't grab me in the first 10 minutes, next, on to something else. Obviously, I had to watch this movie for the interview, but.
That's okay.
But
I won't hold that against you.
Thank you. I loved it. I mean, it really drew me in. The characters drew me in, and you're on a ride. You're just on this ride, and it's a real fascinating ride. And you're right. We can't give away anything. We don't want to give away anything in this film, but it's well worth everybody's time. I'm going to tell everyone, if you have a Netflix subscription, go watch Intrusion when it premieres in September or this month. And
thank you so much, Jen.
You're so
I really,
welcome.
really appreciate it. Thank you.
No, it's my pleasure. It really is. Let's talk about the Freida Pinto and Logan Marshall Green's chemistry on the set, and what was that like, directing both of them? Since we can't give away any part of the movie,
sure,
we can talk about the process.
We can. I'm a very, very, very lucky director. These are two actors. First of all, I want to talk about their courage. They're the only people on this set who had to go maskless. Obviously, on the film, they're not. You see their faces. At the moment we filmed, no vaccines. They were willing to do that. So, I mean, I was very humbled by that courage, and I think everyone on set was very respectful of it. They really came because they love this film, they love this story, and they care so much about filmmaking and about people going back to work, which is, so much of what we were able to do in making this film because no one was working at the time. Their on-set chemistry was really incredible. I mean, it just felt, one of the early films, we can talk about this. One of the early scenes is a date night between this really lovely couple. And that was one of the early scenes we filmed. So it really was kind of right away. They were laughing. It really, to me, it felt like they were on a date. And it was so much fun to do. The other thing I'll say about both of them, and in this way, they're both similar, and I love this, is that they both have strong point of view about their characters, but not just their characters, but how their characters fit within the context of the story. So my early conversations with them were about their characters, but it was also about the story as a whole and how it functions. And I can just say that was so helpful to me as a director to work with collaborators who have that, like they understand what is needed for their character to sing, but also for the whole movie to work.
Well, their chemistry is very
you felt it?
but yeah, oh, definitely.
Oh,
And you're right about that opening date night scene. That was a cute scene too, and how it comes up again later.
Yeah.
How it was all tied in. And that doesn't always happen in a movie, but it definitely ties into that. Other than filming around the pandemic, what was the
Yes.
most difficult part of making this movie?
The most difficult part personally was, it's so funny, it's hard to separate it from the pandemic in a way, but I didn't see my family for 3 months. That was really tough. I was iPad dad and reading a lot of stories to my kids while I was gone. That was definitely the hardest part. As far as the production, it's very interesting. Normally things that would be very easy to film were next to impossible. So for example, we were given regulations that we could only have 25% occupancy in a space. So what does that mean? If the fire code says you can have 10 people in a room, then you're allowed 2.5 people in that room. Well, what are you supposed to do if you have a scene in a bathroom with 2 actors? So, okay, you're already at 2. You need a camera person, you need a boom operator. So all of a sudden these scenes that normally the assistant director would schedule would take an hour and a half, 2 hours to film. All of a sudden it takes 7. So that was really the toughest part, was contending with all of these strange new ways that we have to make films now. So that was really, to me, those were the two toughest things.
So the filming took 3 months to film this movie?
So 8 weeks of prep. So we're in Albuquerque for 8 weeks, and then 25 days of shooting. And then it actually, as I mentioned, it stretched on a little bit because we had some shutdowns, unfortunately. Although the small silver lining there is that the cinematographer and the assistant director and I used that time to actually continue to prepare the film. Mm-hmm. And so in that strange way, we were able to be more prepared because of some of the curveballs that the pandemic threw our way.
So when did you actually finish filming this? You said you started in September of last year.
Started in September, and we finished in early December.
So you really didn't have a whole lot of time to edit it before it's being released now.
About 3 months of editing. Yeah, I'd always take more. The biggest enemy of the director is time. The clock is always ticking, and thankfully I had a really incredible editor. His name's Ben Bodwin. And he actually cut a film that was in one of the films that I was very inspired by in making this film, which is The Gift, written and directed by Joel Edgerton. Mm-hmm. And we had a really great collaboration, very intense, putting this film together for the first 2 months of which remotely. So I was in Northern California, and we were using a sort of somewhat fancy Zoom to see each other and edit remotely. And then we were actually able to start editing in person with masks and all that later on at the end.
It's just amazing with the pandemic. I was just having this conversation in my other interview, how everything has changed so dramatically in the way that we do our work nowadays. And what did we do without Zoom before? It's been amazing.
Yeah.
that
It's hard to separate the making of this film from the moment in which it was made in that way. It's just a sort of baked in. But you're not going to see any masks in the film.
No. Thank goodness.
It's all people, brave actors who are willing to do it with us.
Well, it's a great film. It's exciting. It really is. And everyone, please check out Intrusion on Netflix. It's it's well worth your time and energy, and you will definitely enjoy the ride. It's a great ride. Adam,
Thank you
I
so
wish
much,
you.
Jen.
Oh, you're so welcome, Adam. I wish you much success with this, and I look forward to having you back on the show with your next.
Would love to do it. Yeah,
Good.
thank you so much. Anytime.
Great. Love to have you back on. If you have missed any of the Jan Price shows all about movies, you can go to my website, thejanpriceshow.com, or you can listen on anywhere where you get your podcast, on the iHeart Podcast Network, Apple, Google, iTunes, you name it, we are there. Our YouTube channel, go check out our YouTube channel and please subscribe, and check us out on Twitter and Instagram at The Jan Price Show. Thank you all for listening.